This podcast is brought to you by Amusement Warehouse Magazine, the industry's largest trade publication. We cover amusement parks, carnivals, fairs, festivals, history, safety columns. We really got it all when it comes to the amusement business. Only remaining print publication in the amusement industry on a regular basis. So if you're interested in what the amusement industry has to offer, subscribe today. You can subscribe by logging on to amusementwarehouse.com, carnivalwarehouse.com, or amusementparkwarehouse.com. Welcome to another edition of the Amusement Warehouse Podcast. Today's guest is Patrick Ball, who's joining us a week before his fair starts up in Pennsylvania. And it's your first year, too, on top of it. So very exciting times going on.
Yeah, very exciting times. We're especially excited for this year. It's our 260th anniversary.
That's incredible. 260 years. How do they trace that back? I run a fair in New York, Orange County, and they say they're 185 years old or something like that. But, people ask me about it, and I have no idea. I guess you must keep records from way back when.
Yeah, we have good records internally, and then we also have a very robust York County Historical Society that maintains a lot of records from way back in the time. So 1765 was the first, tracing it back to its first roots.
Some kind of farm show or farmers were trading.
Right, a little agricultural gathering of town folk, if you will. Yeah.
Well, that's pretty neat. And then you just took off from there. And when did you move to your present fairgrounds?
In 1888. We've been here since 1888. So
that's incredible. That's really incredible.
87 acres, which, back at that time, this was the country, and now it's turned into a very, very urban location, right? So we've got houses all around us and major roadways. So it really actually benefits us because we're right in the neighborhood, and we also have access to the major infrastructure, right? Whether it be water, sewer, gas, and those types of things, as well as the roads system to allow people to get here and allow us to help them exit quickly.
That's great. That's absolutely great, especially with the attendance you get. Well, I was reading, actually, did you not close during the war, World War II or so? I was reading like a little note from the guy was the Attorney General or something also, and he's also the manager or something. And he said they decided not to close.
We've been volunteer run for a really long time, for most of our existence. And the board and the life membership would make those decisions. That changed 10, 15 years ago when they ended up hiring full-time CEO with some staff and things like that. And we do about 100 to 110 events on our fairgrounds every year. Obviously, our fair is the biggest event that we do, and it's the only one that we produce. All the others, we're basically the landlord. But again, when you look at the facilities, we need to create a path for viability. And the way you do that is to look at the assets that you have and figure out how you can monetize it. And we've got some fantastic assets. Our grandstand turns 100 years old next year. Mm-hmm. That's where we have our concerts, and they built an arena about 20 years ago. It's a 100,000 square foot arena. Not only do we use that for livestock during the fair, but it's also one of those year round. It's great for volleyball tournaments and basketball tournaments and cheer tournaments and all of those kind of things that bring people to town, that really boost not only our economic position, but also the economic position of our community.
Yeah, to have the right facilities is really a key to getting rent from people, because if you have the wrong building or it's not air conditioned or whatever else, there's so many problems with so many fairgrounds. But if you got the right facilities, you can have a lot of different events going on and collect some nice revenue in the off season.
Yep, that's right.
That's great. So you don't come from a fair background per se. When you came in,
No, I joined the organization last January as interim, and in December we decided to make it a permanent CEO position for me. What's really cool is I was born and raised in York. I grew up about 6 or 8 blocks from here, and I've been to every fair that's happened every year of my life. So I've known
Wow.
about the fair, and to be able to be in this position is just a complete honor and privilege for me. I think as I look at it, and I think this is common across the fair industry, is we're the caretakers, right? This has been here 260 years. It was here way before us. It'll be here way after us. It's our turn at this point to make sure that we do all we can to ensure the financial viability and the sustainability moving forward. So I think when you take that sort of that mentality of a caretaker versus, well, this is our organization and we're going to do everything we can to make it as profitable right now as possible. It's you got to have that longer term look and really stand on the shoulders of what prior generations have done. Again, most of those being volunteers.
But running a fair of this size is you're always in our top 50 fair list every year that we
Mm-hmm.
put out. And, it's a major event. So that there's a lot of things to learn. I mean, you had a pretty short learning curve. What are you thinking?
Yeah,
What challenges you're facing? Did you have some second thoughts about it because it is so big
yeah.
of
I would attribute it to the team. I mean, the team that we have here is amazing. Some of the really cool things. So last year was my first fair in the interim role, and what was really interesting to me is people would just show up and start doing stuff, right? And I'd say to the office manager, "Who's that? And why are they here?" Right?
why are they taking money out of the ticket boxes?
Well, and it turns out what it is it's in some cases multi-generational, right?
Hmm.
So my dad did this, now I took over for him. So I've been involved with gates for 40 years, or I've been involved with backstage security for 45 years, right? And just the historical knowledge that's there, you can't beat that, right? And so we've got an incredibly dedicated and knowledgeable and talented full-time team, but then we also have literally an army of people who come back every year and work the fair. They'll take off vacation time from their jobs and come and work, the 10 days of the fair. And you can't put a value or a price tag on that institutional knowledge, right? That goes back in some cases generations.
Yeah, no, that's an awesome thing, no question about it. But I guess it can be. I've seen it happen in the past where you do have people that have done things for years, and then maybe coming in, you maybe want to make some
Right.
changes or see some inefficiencies that you want to fix.
Yep.
And there's a lot of resistance to that, because people have been doing it the same way, and you're the new guy that's telling them what to do, and
Right.
they kind of resent it a little bit. So that's a you got to tiptoe around that sometimes, or figure out a way around it
Yeah.
diplomatically.
So as again, sort of my a little bit of my history. I do a lot of strategy work. So as a consultant, I've been a consultant for the last 13 years or so, and I do a lot of strategy work, but I also do a lot of interim leadership, which is how I landed here.
Oh wow.
And with the interim leadership, what I've learned is I don't know the business as well as the people who are here, right? What's most important is building and maintaining a fantastic team. And this is one of the few organizations when I came into it that already had a fantastic team in place, right? A number of the other organizations I worked with, I've had to make adjustments and things like that. For this team, they were high functioning, they were knowledgeable, again, like I said, very talented. And so it's a matter of now saying, okay, team, how can we make this better, right? And again, through my experience, what I found is all you have to do is ask, and people are full of ideas, especially the folks on the front lines, right? Let's talk to the vendors. Let's talk to the maintenance crew. Let's talk to the people who have worked at Gates for 20 years. How can we make this better? And now this year, we're increasing our parking capacity. We're doing things, like we're going to have an app, right? So we looked at this and we said, how do we improve communication? Well, let's have an app that people can download that will help them lay out the course of their day, right? So that they can understand everything that's here. Because when you come to a fair that's the size of ours, which again, 87 acres, certainly not the largest one geographically, but there's a lot going on, right? We've got livestock, we've got
Hmm.
grandstand, we've got midway, we've got the kids area, we've got horticulture, we've got crafts, and you want to make sure people understand all of that, right? The free acts, people who are just putting on different performances. And so by being able to roll out the app, that's actually a complement to better communication, right? We're communicating better with our guests by having them informed and giving them a tool to be able to optimize their visit, which ultimately, hopefully, increases their satisfaction and their desire to come back and their desire to tell their friends.
That's great. And will the app have things like show times and
Yep. Yep.
different information?
Yeah,
I've
so
seen a
you'll be
lot of
able to go
apps,
in
and
and actually create a schedule, and it'll remind you. And then
that's
if you're not
great.
sure where it is, we also have it geo spotted, so you'll be able to go in and find the location.
That's something you're close to. What, food vendors too, or
Yep.
no?
Yep. Food vendors
That's
too.
amazing.
Yep.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of apps, and they're there because they're an app, but to be really useful, I haven't seen a whole lot. Yours sounds very interesting, like something that you really need to have to help them have a great time at
Yeah.
the fair. Because otherwise it just says, "Oh, the fair's these dates" or something, and then it gives you some
Correct. Right.
general information, and
That's
that's
right.
fine. But it doesn't really help you with the other thing I'm noticing nowadays is just the act of downloading the app is difficult for a lot of people because they don't want to use the space on their phone
Right.
unless they're really going to get a benefit from it. So,
Yeah.
that's something I was thinking about the other day when I was at an event or a park actually, and the act of downloading. But some people are like, I don't want to download the app; it takes up too much space, and
Yeah.
I don't know what benefits going to give me. So you really got to have some unique benefits or some important benefits for a
That's right.
person to use up that space in their phone now to do it. So
Mhm.
that sounds like you've thought that through and are really
Yeah, we're
having a nice.
excited to see what the level of engagement will be. Again, this is and again, it's been my experience with fairs, and I think as a team and as the board of directors, our constant challenge is trying to figure out how do we balance the traditions of the past, right? The things that people have come to know and love about the fair. And one of the things fairs have always been known for, right, is introducing new and innovative kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing, right? And so by having both, I think is to your point earlier, how we help people kind of move along and think a little bit differently about how they do things, whether it's our guests or our employees or other folks that are coming, our vendors.
Yeah, I think there's like I've worked as a consultant at a couple of events before, and this was about I don't know 5 or 6 years ago. I went to a place and it was a big event, and they had a person that was like in a role for a long time, and you automatically assume just because they've been doing it for a long time that they're doing it the best way or something like that.
Right.
But I was a little shocked at the way they were doing something, and I was like, "Why?" And he's like, "Well, they've been here 30 years," and I was like, "It's interesting because you could be doing something." I don't want to say wrong, but let's just use wrong for the word, but something, not the most efficient way for 30 years. And just because you keep doing it over and over
No,
and over
absolutely.
again doesn't mean
That's
that
right.
it's the best thing. Longevity by itself doesn't necessarily mean anything. But that was really an epiphany for me because I was like, oh, you think somebody's there a long time that they got it all down, but you're like,
Right.
wow, you
Yeah,
just fix this, you'll be okay.
that's right.
It'll do the thing. So what are you the third CEO for the fair? Is that Mike
Correct.
Frolic and
That's
then
right.
Brian Blair and then you?
That's right. Yep.
And that title was changed. So there wasn't a manager before that. It was just a.
I think there was someone who was in charge. So Mike Rutter, Mr. Rutter, had played that role for a number of years from a volunteer perspective,
Mm-hmm.
and he's still actually around. He's our livestock superintendent. So he was just in my office yesterday. We were chit chat about things, and so he's again. I think he told me he's turning 88 this year, and so
Wow.
he's got an incredible institutional knowledge, and again we also benefit. One of his sons serves on our board of directors, so there's that continuation of that family involvement and over multiple generations.
That's amazing. Yes. The first I remember when Mike was there the first time he came. He was at Ohio State Fair. He was assistant manager for a couple of years, and had a pretty big background. But he said he was the first manager for lack of a better word there. And I mean I don't think I ever thought about that, but I didn't. I was just shocked that to really
Right.
think about that and digest that this major event has not had a manager for all those years, which
Right.
I guess Bloomsburg's a little similar too, right? With
I think so, right? Yeah.
yeah, I don't think they have a like a full-time paid manager or something like
I
that.
think
One of the
you're right.
you two are one of the only two in the country probably that are in that situation, which is pretty amazing to be of the size that you are, and you have to
Right.
be able to do your thing. That's it's crazy. It's really great. Um, so coming into the role, what are the areas of the fair that you have the least experience in that you feel like are the biggest learning curve for you?
Yeah, I think for me, again, born and raised in the city, it's probably the livestock side of things. I'm
Yeah,
familiar with the agriculture, only because I live in the country and that kind of thing. But I think understanding the livestock terms, understanding some of the challenges of our folks who bring in livestock and that kind of thing is for me. Again, we've got great resources around us on staff and volunteer that really help to get me up to speed on some of those challenges and some of the intricacies that you kind of wouldn't even think about, right? So it's been helpful. It's also been helpful with our strong relationships with the folks at the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture as we've navigated this whole avian flu, and are the birds in, are they out, and those kind of things. So having those long-term relationships and having people know who we are really helps. But that's probably the area where I've been focused on learning the most.
interesting. Yeah, because that's a whole world. That's a whole nother world. The
Right.
agriculture side or the livestock side, and the competitions and what
Hmm.
to do at the
Right.
competitions. That's always been a thought of mine with some of the competitions. Is like when you go, if you don't know anything about livestock, you really don't know what's going on those competitions with a
That's
lot of
right.
things. And then a lot of fairs don't. I talked to Marla Calico when she's still around and some other people about it, and it's one of the areas where I really think a big improvement could be made because you have really if you're a neophyte, you don't you've never been around, you have no idea what's going on. You really don't know what they're looking for. You don't know what they're judging. It's a great learning opportunity, but it's really not utilized that much.
Right. Nope, you're exactly right. And we do focus. We actually have an ag education center.
Hmm.
It's half of one of our larger buildings that we dedicate to that. So a lot of interactive types of things for kids. A baby duck display, chicks hatching, that kind of thing, so that people are able to experience it firsthand and have an educational component to it. That's been, I think, one of our differentiators when it comes to the agricultural side, because we are technically the York County Agricultural Society,
Right.
and so part of our mission is to deliver agricultural education. And so we work closely with FFA, we work closely with 4-H, but we dedicate a large facility to ag education during our fair. To exactly to your point.
Great. That's important. Where the food comes from and what we do
Yep,
with it.
that's right.
Um, what about entertainment? You still have a grandstand. There's been, a trend in a lot of places to kind of get rid of it because it's such a difficult business to be in, to have entertainment and with the competition from venues and promoters and things like that, it's been really tough. Excuse me. But you're still in that business, so that's something you really got to pay attention to, I imagine, because it's not easy.
Absolutely. No, it's an incredibly competitive environment. We've Again, this being our 260th, we decided early on we're going to have an act on the grandstand every night, and so we've got pretty big names on the grandstand virtually every night of the fair. And so the other thing that was important for me was having something for everyone, right? And so it's not all rock, it's not all country, it's not all one particular genre. And if we do that and we do it right, we're able to open up and appeal to as much of the community as possible, right? And again, if we can do that, we can get more people through the gates, we can get more people exposed to what we do, and hopefully continue to build on the brand loyalty, if you will, to that. But the grandstand is a big draw for us. Our grandstand actually will turn 100 years old next year, right? And so We've been allocated some state funds a number of years ago that we're still working on trying to figure out how to leverage the best. And part of our focus is figuring out what's going to be the highest and best use for that grandstand beyond just the 10 days of the fair, right? What opportunities do we have?
So, yeah, the acts bring a lot of people, but from a financial standpoint, is it still makes sense money wise?
There are some that do really well, and then there are some that don't do so well. And so, if we can get to a break-even perspective, that's traditionally been the way it's been viewed. I think going forward, we'll look more towards making sure that we're balancing what we think is going to sell with what the prices are. I mean, some of the acts are just
Incredible.
for a facility our size, where our max capacity is somewhere around 14,000, it becomes a math problem, right? If your act is
Yes.
$1 million or $1.5 million, we can't charge people, $200 a seat to sit in a 100-year-old grandstand, and so it becomes a challenge. And so I think over time, supply and demand will help us figure some of that out. But I think it's also one of those things that people have come to expect from us, and we'll continue to do our best to deliver on that.
When you're saying break even, are you doing it strictly on ticket sales, or are you using the gate admission and maybe some rides or some food money, or if you're on
I
percentage or
think I think if we look just at ticket sales, that gives us a good basis, and then the other stuff becomes, sort of that whether it's alcohol sales or concession revenue or
midway rides?
midway ride, right? Yeah,
Yeah, so if you're breaking even just on the ticket basis, then you're doing really well because you got all those
right,
ancillary incomes that are coming in as well. So you're making money then, which
right.
is
And
which
and
is
the way they do well, right, is by more foot traffic, right? And
Mhm.
one of the keys is to get more foot traffic through the grandstand act. So it really is it's a fascinating business that, again, a year and a half ago I didn't know a whole lot about, but I've learned pretty quickly what's gone on. We've got some great external advisors that we work with, and so they've been able to help us sort of understand the industry. This year has been particularly interesting with acts that we think we've got an agreement with, and then 3 weeks later, we get a call from the production company that they've been rerouted to the Midwest, so they're not even going to be in your area during that time. And so
Jeez.
I think it goes back to that competition between venues, right? That you kind of spoke
Mhm.
about earlier, where you've got venues who are strictly dedicated to being a concert venue versus us, where concert is one of the things that we do. So
Right. Concerts isn't necessarily our business, and it's getting so um, difficult. It's like a razor's edge with profitability.
that's
You
right.
you can't make mistakes like you used to be able to do years ago. I mean, you could book an act and all right,
Yeah.
overpaid a little bit for it, but nowadays with the prices that people are paying, it's a little scary. It really is, and that's why so many fairs are moving out of that
Right.
business a little bit and moving in. But the impact that a big name has, like you're saying, is tremendous.
Right.
Just the buzz, you get about it. I have a good friend who's a manager of a major fair, and he's a, real numbers guy. He looks at numbers. He's not very he doesn't get emotional about things like that. But he says, that people talk about it. When
That's
when you
right.
have a big name act, there's a discussion
Yep.
whether or not they're going to the fair or they're going to see that act. They think the fair is good that year because there's a big act going on and there's
Yeah.
something going on. So it makes a big impact on the whole fair, even if they don't go, which is
Yep.
crazy.
No, I think you're right. I think you're right.
But learning that business, that's a fun challenge. Definitely for somebody who hasn't done it before.
Absolutely.
It's a fun challenge. What about like the free acts and things like that? Have you had a hand in booking that? And
Yeah. So we do a lot of our, what we do is our leadership team gets together once a week, right? And so we've been talking about this year's fair since the end of last year's fair, and thinking about acts and things like that. So our person in charge of that will bring it to the group and say, what do we think, right? Here's who's, and we'll have a whole list we'll go through, and
okay,
some we're interested in, some we're not, and the ones we're interested in, we'll we'll have her do a little bit more research around pricing, around facility needs, and those kind of things, availability, and then we try and lock those in. So we've got some pretty unique ones this year that we're kind of excited about. We
Like
also have,
what have some examples of?
yeah, sure. So we've got, that'll be here all 10 days. We've got a jousting act, which we think will
Oh,
be
that's neat.
a
I had
big
one
draw.
not too long ago. That was kind of fun,
Yeah,
actually.
and something a little different. But then we also have Tunnels to Towers. They're coming with their mobile
Really?
museum, so they're going to be here the
Okay.
first 3 days. So that's a mobile 9/11 museum. The trailer, it's an 83-foot tractor trailer. The trailer pops
Wow.
out in an 1,100 square foot museum to 9/11, and the folks who give the tours actually give firsthand accounts they were there. And
Wow.
I think it's going to be pretty impactful. And then we've also got so that's our first Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and then our first Sunday, Monday, we'll have America 250 PA. They just launched their mobile museum on July 4th out in the western part of the state. So they're going to be here. We got in on their routing, and so that Sunday we're going to have both of those, right? In addition to our Heroes Parade, where we'll have fire trucks and ambulances and law enforcement and a helicopter and a tank and all that kind of stuff, right? So a big day around that. And then the other free act that's a little bit different this year, we think it might be the first time in York County, is we're going to have a drone show.
Neat.
And so the drone show, again, co-sponsored by the Pennsylvania Lottery and America 250 PA, will have a very sort of America flavor to it, historical flavor to it. So we're looking forward to that. But again, that'll be something different for our guests to be able to take in, and something that many people haven't seen before. So
No, drones are pretty neat. How many drones are in the show?
that's a really good question. I'm just going to answer that with a lot.
A lot. Yeah, they're pretty. They can get pretty impressive with a lot of
Yeah.
a big drone show like that. It's
I was
really,
looking through the storyboard yesterday, and it's a really cool sort of how it flips through and goes from one image to the next to the next.
It is. It's like it's incredible, really, when it's done well. It's absolutely a great thing. A lot of the amusement parks are using those. I know it's been
Right.
popular.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. Those are pretty neat acts. And then you have just some regular racing pig circus type acts or whatever.
We got the racing pigs. We actually have a circus. We have I have the whole list here, but we've got Sir Mime-a-Lot, who is a mime. We've got the jousting, as I mentioned. We've got Wheels of Ag. We have disc dogs, which are the acrobatic dogs, racing pigs, and the Victoria Circus. So those are the ones that are here all 10 days.
Victoria Circus. Yeah, those are good acts, and it's a tough time of year too, because now that you're in July, you're kind of in the thick of things. There's so many fairs going on at the same time, so
Right.
the acts are all booked, or there's a lot of fairs, I should say, that are after the acts. July,
and
August, September.
To your point earlier, some of the things I've heard from some of the acts are, I would love to come to your fair, right? I know about your fair. One guy, his mentor's mentor was a big deal at this fair with his act, right? And so people know who we are, which I think helps when you're booking and when you're reaching out to people. But still, it's a significant expense when you pull all of that together and know that we're not selling tickets for that, right? That's just part of the cost of admission. And I would submit that the general public has no idea what it costs, that it even cost anything, right?
To book the act, you mean?
Right.
They think the pigs just show up and start running around the track.
I don't think people think about it.
They don't. They don't think about the music either. I mean, it's incredible what they don't know. I mean, we're up in New York, the fair that I run. Years ago we used to have big name acts, and then we stopped. It's been a long time, but you get an email all the time about why can't you book Van Halen, or why can't you book Metallica, or some.
Yeah.
I'm like, do you have any idea what they cost? I want to say, I don't know if it's worth it, but it's just. They must not know, or they must think that we take in so much money that we can book something like that. That it's.
Yeah, I would lean on my asking around town has shown that people just have no clue. They have no idea whatsoever. No idea.
Yeah, I actually once had a kiddie train ride like in a mall during Christmas, and the guy was I forget what we're charging. It wasn't much, $2-3,
Mhm.
but the guy's like, "Why do you charge so much for the thing?" And I said, just out of curiosity, what do you think that train costs to buy? And
Uh-huh.
he said something ridiculous, like $5,000. It was like 60,000 at the time, you know.
Right.
It's like
Right.
$5,000. I said, no, it's 60,000. Well, you're paying too much for it. I said, okay,
Yeah, it's your fault regardless.
well, get it cheaper for me, and I'll buy it. There you
That's
go.
right. That's
We'll be
right.
all set. Yeah, so that is a tough time of year. So I guess the big news, or at least for you guys, when over the last couple of years, was your change of dates, going
Hmm.
from September where you were for it was York and Bloomsburg were together, so the vendors would go from one to the other, and then you move
Right.
back to the July into August. And people still talk about it. I saw the news article the other day about the thing,
Yeah.
uh, your move. So, uh, and you obviously weren't the manager when it happened, but I mean, how are you guys cemented with those July dates? And is that your
So
plan, or how's it worked out? And
yeah. So I think again the answer I continue to give is everything's on the table, right? We don't have enough data to be able to make a decision at this point. I think because it only happens once a year, right? Um, when it first happened, we were coming out of COVID, so there were some I think macro influences there that didn't help with the analysis, right? Because
Mhm.
I'm not sure whether you credit this to, you know, to COVID, or do you credit this to the time change? You can't really tell. And so I think as we're entering our fifth year in July, we continue to look at it, right? And things. And I think it's important for people to understand this not a decision that was taken lightly when it was made by the board and leadership, and we continue to take it just as seriously, right? Because again, I hear from the constituents all the time, one of whom I live with, right, who are emotionally very attached to that September timeframe.
Still, huh? Interesting.
And I think what you have to do is take a step back and say objectively from a business perspective, what makes the most sense for the long-term viability and sustainability of this organization and the facilities. And we just don't have enough information to be able to make that decision yet. And so again, we'll continue to look at it. Um, the good news is if it's a hot day, we've got plenty of beverages and we've got over 100,000 square feet of air conditioned space. So we can certainly accommodate your needs, but you know, it also gets really hot in September, and
They
so
can, yeah.
when
That'll be
people
you'll move back to September and you'll go through a heat wave, and it'll be 1,000 degrees, and everybody will
when you
say,
go through
"What?"
a heat wave or you'll have a hurricane, right? And a
And they'll
hurricane
say,
will
"I
knock
told
out
you not to move the dates."
That's right. A hurricane will knock out 4 or 5 days, right? And then you're totally shot. So I think it's
What
one of
was
those we can't control the weather. We need to look at all the other factors.
what was the impetus for moving? I mean, what were the overriding?
Yeah. So there were really three main drivers. One was more named storms, right? Show up in the
Mm,
fall, like that late August into September. We've just been seeing more and more named storms, which where we are positioned generally doesn't matter where they hit Florida, they seem to come up around Pennsylvania.
they do.
Um, that was probably number three on the list. Number one was, with the entertainment. There's more entertainment options available during July. More people are touring. Um, After Labor Day, things kind of wind down with some of the tours. They take off till the holidays,
The
whatever that.
grandstand acts you're talking
The
about, right? Yeah.
Grandstand Act, exactly right. And the other option or the other reason was the FFA and 4-H kids, right? We've got 1,200 animals that we show
Mm.
here with the birds. Will be over 1,500 animals that we'll show throughout the grounds. And in the past, right, I'll say back when I was a kid, I'd walk through the cattle barns and the kids, the FHA and 4-H kids would sleep in
Yeah.
the barns with the animals, right? And I think people look back at that and say, well, that was great, right? That was really the way it should be. But the kids had the flexibility at that time to be able to take off from school, right? That's become less and less of a thing. And so, in fairness to the kids, to give them the full experience, part of the justification for moving was we want to make sure the kids have 10 days that they can dedicate to this, as opposed to having to sit there and do their homework or be in school all day and then get run from school to here and that kind of thing. So that's a big driver for us. Again, going back to the agricultural mission, is what are we doing all we can to help support the 4-H and the FFA folks.
And were the kids and their parents the ones they were pushing for date change?
No,
they
it
weren't.
didn't
Okay.
come from them. It was,
You
I
just
think,
thought it was a
driven
good
by
idea.
things are changing. What do we need to do? Again, I don't know what the impetus for the discussion was, but I think those were the three areas of justification that I've heard
Interesting.
as primary justification.
Because it just involves so much, your vendors, your carnival, your everything that you have that gets routed. It's a big change. It's a big
Right.
move, to do stuff like that. So did most of your vendors come back? Your food vendors, were they able
Most
to?
of them did. Most of them did, and we've had some success, some pretty good success this year. Last year we had 225 vendors. This year we will be over 300, and so we've been able to attract because we've proactively gone out and have done our best to really focus locally, but then also to focus on what are some of the things that we're missing, right, from a vendor perspective.
And what are you missing?
At this point, I think we've got a pretty well-rounded offering.
What were you
Right?
missing that you added?
So I think some of the things, again, I'm sitting at a Rotary meeting and a woman does a presentation. She's created a whole line of spicy sauces that are handled in grocery stores. And she does catering, like, for the Penn State football team at James Franklin's house, right? That kind of thing. And I went up to her afterwards and I said, "You need to be at the fair, right? Like people need to know who you are." And so she came out, we sat down, we walked through it. She's buying two booths, right? One where she's going to prep some food, another where she's going to sell her sauces. And so we're really excited about that local connection, right? That local opportunity that she probably wouldn't even thought about had that chance meeting not happened.
That's neat. And what are some of the more iconic, interesting foods that you have in New York?
Yeah, I think for us, the ham and cheese has been a staple for so long, and it's just one of those things everybody has to have. The funnel cakes do really well. The baked potatoes do really well. The sausage sandwiches do really well. So it's pretty traditional. I don't think there's a whole lot of things that are, off the
Unique or
yeah,
crazy?
off the lines. We're Pennsylvania Dutch. We don't like to go too far from some of those things.
Which means you're German, right? I majored in religion actually, and my professor one year, and I never thought about it, but he's like, they misinterpreted Deutsch, which is German for or German for German,
Uh-huh.
and somebody thought Dutch, and then they started putting like clog sandals and windmills up, but nobody's Dutch, they're German.
Right. That's right.
The uh, uh, do you do any kind of like weird food contest or new food contest or anything like that?
This year we're looking to do some kind of most popular, right? Vote for your favorite,
Okay.
as well as new, and so we're kind of launching that. I think with the all the other things that are going on, that won't produce the results that we initially envisioned, but that'll be something that we can look at next year.
Now, those seem to be very popular. They get a lot of media play for sure.
Yeah,
If you can
yeah,
bring them into a radio station or do something with the new food or the crazy food, and
yeah.
I don't know that the food necessarily sells, but
That's right.
it generates some publicity and people talk about it for a long time. Pickle
Yeah,
pizza or fried cockroaches or something crazy
that's
that
right.
they have
That's right.
at some
Yeah,
of
and
these fairs.
I think the media plays an important role in what we do, and we've been, again, very fortunate. We've got fantastic relationships with all four of the major stations, all four of the major networks that cover our area, um, as well as you mentioned the print media and things like that. So we've got people who support us and want to help tell the story, which is great.
You still have print media, huh? That's good.
Yeah, believe it or not.
That's neat. I guess so. Advertising, you're in an interesting place because you're not like in a major metropolitan area. So what is your where do you advertise? What's your radius look like, and how are you reaching people these days to bring them out?
Yeah, so it's really a multi-pronged approach to the marketing. We've got a strong social media presence. I think we're 50, 60,000 Facebook followers. We've got a strong email database, again, another 50, 60, 70,000 names in the database. We've also got a great partner in the York County Economic Alliance, which is the version of the Chamber of Commerce here in York. And they have a really cool software it's called Placer AI.
Oh
That,
yeah, I use Placer all the time in my business. Yeah.
yep. So it traces, as you know, cell phone usage, and you can track
Hmm.
where people came from, where they went before they came to your event, where they went after. They've done a couple of analyses for us, and it's fascinating to draw. I mean, we're drawing from Ohio to Delaware, New York to West Virginia for some of our concerts, right? We focus our social media and our advertising primarily in York County, but for some of the bigger acts, we'll go into Baltimore, we'll go up to State College, we'll go as far west as Pittsburgh
Wow.
for some of the ones that we want to get out that we know people will travel for. Because again, we're offering, I think we're able to offer, and most fairs are able to offer great entertainment at a reasonable price, right? Because you're not
Hmm.
paying for a domed stadium with 50,000 parking spaces, right? And so for $100 you can come see Rascal Flats, and
And
um,
$50 to park at some of those stadiums.
that's right, and it's $10 to park here, right? And so it's and the cost of admission to the fair is included in your tickets, so it's $10 to
That's a
park, and
good deal.
you're in the concert. So I think again that's a differentiator for fairs, and we need to start thinking about how do we market that differentiation as an industry to make sure that we're we're speaking up for ourselves, if you will.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And you can spend the whole day there. If you go to a concert,
That's right.
you got to figure it out. You got to rush up there. You get in line. You pay $1 million to park. You get into your seat, watch the show, and then you go. Whereas
That's
this,
right.
spend the same amount or less money probably, and you have a full day, and you could do all kinds of things.
Yep.
Probably for the whole family instead of where you're going. That's pretty neat. You
Right.
mentioned Placer. I've actually been experimenting a lot with for the top 50 list using Placer's data
Okay.
for attendance. It's worked. I mean, I've been sort of beta testing it, but it's pretty accurate, I think, for most places.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the numbers I get from some of the fairs are way off, but
Yeah.
I think that's more a fair thing than it is a Placer thing because the Placer
Yeah.
numbers seem to be pretty solid on the ones I'm testing on people I know are giving me solid numbers, at
Yeah.
but you can play with it forever. Where do they come from?
Right.
What's the what their makeup is, like what kind of people they are and common traits that they have, and it's great for marketing. I mean, I use it for all my marketing clients. I mean, I do a lot of advertising for different events,
Okay.
and I use it all the time. I mean,
Yeah.
every event I do, I run a Placer and I look at that data before I do the advertising. And a lot of people, especially if they're not used to something like that, they don't really get it. They're like, well, just tell me where you're going to advertise. I said, well, first I want to run some data, and then I'll tell you where I'm gonna, what we're gonna do because.
That's right. That's right.
But you got to, you get the data and then you got to draw conclusions from it. That's where the trick comes in a little bit because you may
Right.
think they're doing a certain thing for a certain reason, but it may not be that reason.
No,
It
that's
might
right.
be another reason. You media mix wise, are you doing a lot of TV or cable or radio? Are you doing a lot of
Um,
digital? Are you
we'll
doing?
do
Where
we'll
are
do
you?
radio based on the genre, right?
Okay.
So whether it's country, rock, Christian, pop, whatever, we'll align with the radio stations. Social media obviously is sort of where we are as a foundation, and then the others will build upon those. But yeah, it's got to be multi-dimensional. Some of the things, again, just as I talk to people I know, and I was talking to a friend of mine, and I said, "Well, clearly you're going to come to the '90s show." And she's like, "I don't even know what you're talking about." And I said, "How can you not know what we're talking about, right? We've got Vanilla Ice and Rob Bass and CNC Music Factory and the whole deal coming." She's like, "Why listen to country, right?" And and so that's what kind of sparked the idea of we need to get this out in as many different modules as possible, as many different mediums as possible, so that we're just people are driving by a billboard and then they hear it on the radio and then they see it in the paper and then they see it on social media. Maybe by then it will sink in, right? And because you're just overwhelmed, There's so much noise out there from a marketing perspective that you gotta cast as many nets strategically as you can to make sure that people are hearing the same consistent message over and over.
Yeah, and that's the great thing about some of the digital or the streaming or whatever you want to call it. The targeting ability is great because, like you mentioned, billboard or newspaper. Those you can't.
Right.
You can only put your general market ad in there. The fair, it's this dates, and we're great. And we got a couple of things, but if you want to advertise, like you said, the '90s show,
Yeah.
it's probably not going to be on your billboard per se, unless you're doing digital billboards and changing them every day or something like that.
Right.
So you're able to, both through your website, one or two, with some targeted ads,
Mm-hmm.
push things that you wouldn't be able to push, if it was the old days where you just did a radio commercial and a television commercial and a newspaper ad and that was it. So
Right. Yeah.
it does give you a lot of opportunity if you're not lazy and are willing to make multiple ads
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
because there's a lot more art that has to be done if you're going to do it correctly. So
That's right.
it takes a lot of effort. And with Facebook or any of the socials, you really got to be relevant too. You can't just put an ad up. It doesn't
That's right.
really
That's right.
work great that way. So many people just put up an ad and they wonder why they don't get any engagement or they don't get any.
Yeah.
It's sort of like PR used to be in the day. You got to be, you have to earn it. People have to be
Right.
engaged with it. It has to have an angle. It has some reason for a person to click or go over and see it. So it's a whole different ballgame, no question about it. It's a lot more work actually in a lot of ways than it used to be with.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot more strategy involved as opposed to, you go your three different ways, you toss it out there and somebody's going to pick it up, right? It's definitely figuring out how do we get to the target audience? What are we looking for here?
Mhm.
How do we activate them? So one of the things that we do that again was they were doing before I got here, which I think has been pretty neat, is leading up to an announcement is they'll put clues out, right? We'll put
That's
clues
cute.
on social media, but that, to your point, engages people, right? To say, well, I
Mhm.
think it's this person, I think it's that person. The other thing that does is help inform us who are people thinking about, right? So they might say, well, I think it's Rascal Flatts, but I really wish they'd bring Garth Brooks, right? Well, that helps us understand what are they thinking about, what's sort of the preference and what's the market thinking.
Yeah, that's a cute way to do it with the clues and getting people interested in what
Right.
they
Yeah,
want to
you kind of
see.
gamify it, right? And
Hmm.
just get people to engage.
Yeah, no, there's so many opportunities with digital stuff like that, whether it's social or just regular digital. And then you can, even when you do find the right audience, you got to have the right ad on top of it. So,
Right.
that's you A and B test, which we call it. So you make a couple different ads and you see which one
Mm-hmm.
gets the most traction and then go with that one and watch the numbers. It's a whole job. It really is. It used to be done. You made your ad,
That's right.
made your creative, threw it out there and you're done. But
Yeah.
if you're going to do it right, it's a workhorse. It can be a workhorse. You got to constantly monitor and see where you're going and see what you're doing and go from there. But it's not the same ball game. People think it's easier.
Right.
It's not necessarily easier. It could be a lot harder in a lot of
Nope,
ways.
that's right. And it also gives you that new opportunity, right? Which is during the fair, being able to talk about things that are happening
Absolutely.
live time, right? To be able to say, hey, this is what we went through today. This is what we experienced today. Hey, the new calf was born. Hey, here's a new ride. Here's different food. But it allows you to engage that group of people who maybe were on the fence and thinking about it, but maybe that's what helps trigger them to make the decision to come.
Mm-hmm.
But you're
No
right;
question.
it's a lot of effort.
It is a lot of effort. It really is. So you also have a relatively new carnival. How many years has Straight Years been there? A couple of 3 years.
So this will be their fifth year. They came
It's
in
5 years already. Oh my
after
gosh,
COVID, and then we had used them a long time ago,
a
from what
long
I
time ago. Yeah.
understand. But yeah, they've been terrific to work with. I was just talking with those guys this morning, so they're actively setting up.
All
And
three brothers.
Jimmy's here. John's on his way.
John's on his way.
Yeah,
They tag team. They like that. One
that's
goes
right.
fishing and one stays.
That's right. Yeah.
So it's been fun. You never worked with a carnival before. Has that been interesting? Hearing the
Yeah,
history
no, I
and
think again, it's understanding the business, and what's fascinating for me again as a strategy consultant slash interim leadership consultant. All business is kind of the same, right?
it is, yeah.
You've got a product that you have to sell, and you have to treat the customers right. You have to create value that they're willing to pay for, and whether it's for profit, nonprofit, it all kind of is the same when it comes down to it. So hearing about their business and obviously the challenges that are specific to that business are pretty substantial. But when I look at it, my message to them is how can we make you more profitable, right? How can we work together to drive your revenue? And then also, things like last year we shut down an hour early because there was no reason for us to be open as late as we thought we were going to need to be.
Hmm.
But that saves them a lot of money in diesel fuel and personnel cost and things like that, right? And so having those relationships where again they know what I'm interested in is what benefits them. I know what they're interested in is what benefits us. And so we're able to work together to come to a mutually beneficial agreement around how things run.
That's the. Did you do a lot with their 100th anniversary a couple of years ago or whatever it was? Or was it?
I,
It was 2 years ago, I think,
yeah,
right?
I wasn't here for that, but
Oh, that's true. Year
last
before.
year actually we had one of the local reporters. His cameraman was assigned to come up with some different stories that he had to go out and do on his own. And so I put him in touch with Jimmy and John, and they sat down and did 100-year kind of overview, and then talked about their relationship with the fair and things like that. So it was a neat little story for those guys, because again, I don't think they usually get a whole lot of visibility in that in the overall scope of things, right? I don't think people understand the logistics that go into it, the cost that goes into it, the personnel challenges, and all those things that they have. And so, we appreciate them as much as we appreciate all of our other vendors that are here.
Absolutely. Any did they go over rides with you, or what do you look for in a midway? Do you go
Yeah,
through and say I'd like this or like that
we're
or
gonna make we're gonna make some changes this year. We're gonna have a more segregated area between the midway and the kiddie area.
okay.
And so, we don't. We had a little bit of mixing last year, which I think created some confusion for people. And again, we're trying to make it that this is the midway, this is the grandstand, this is the kiddie area, this is the agricultural corridor, so that it helps people. Again, we talk about the app. It helps people sort of navigate the grounds better and find the area that they're most interested in, and get the most out of that area that they can.
And what's your favorite ride at the fair?
Favorite ride? I'm gonna have to go with the claw. Right, that's always the one that gets the most people screaming, I think. So.
It does. It does for sure. Yeah, they have a storied history. It's really fascinating to listen to
Yep.
the history of straight shows, and they do bring it out at some places where they really talk about it, and it does get some publicity because they got to be one of the oldest traveling carnivals around right now. Now that they're off the train, it's they lose
Right.
a little bit of that nostalgia. I know they did a little thing for Erie. Was it last year or year before?
Right. Yep.
Um, they drove like a couple miles on the train to make
That's
it
right.
in, but
Yeah.
I guess it doesn't make any economic sense anymore to travel by train. It's a
That was our discussion. I talked to them about it last year for this year to see if we could do something, and they said, economically it's not feasible. And then they ended up selling um, some of their cars,
yeah,
their
yeah,
flatbeds, to folks in North Carolina to build bridges after the floods. So higher and better use for some of those materials, I guess. But
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but they're a great family. Nice. Have you met Mr. Straits, the father, or has he been
have
out
no,
in New York? He
no,
hasn't been out.
no.
Yeah, I know he's curtailed his travels quite a bit, but
Gotcha.
always a fascinating guy to be around. What about food? What are some of your favorite foods out there?
Really, for me, it's the ham and cheese and it's the sausage. That's kind of what I go for. I'll dabble in other things, but those are the things I have to have every day. So
Yeah, Pennsylvania fairs, especially in the middle part of the state, are known for the food and how well the food does at
yeah.
the events. Are your vendors, are they all are they booked on just a rent basis, or are you on percentage with your vendors, or how does that work?
Percentage. Yep.
Percentage. So that's nice. So you should take in a decent amount of money with some food at the.
Yeah, so I think what I like about that is those kind of arrangements to me make the most sense, because then it's incumbent on us to bring as many people in to the fair as possible, and it's incumbent on them to be able to provide a good quality product, right? And so
Yes.
you get a win-win, and again, it creates that partnership. Whereas you pay a straight rent, I'm not sure, you know, I don't have an incentive to bring more people into the grounds necessarily, and so there's no shared goal there, right?
Yeah. No, you're right. I mean, because if you do bring in more people, the only way you get more money is if you book more vendors, which isn't in their best
Correct,
interest.
correct.
So when you're on percentage, then rising tide rises all boats, brings
All
up all
boats.
boats,
That's
right? So
exactly
you're
right. Yeah, and we've got, again, we're doing things, and it's also in looking at, working with the Straits guys. They were able to share some of their historical information, right? They have reports that talk about revenue by hour, by day, and you can tell the days we did promos, and you can tell the days we didn't. And so this year we're doing promos 9 of the 10 days, right?
hmm.
So it takes away the I can't afford to get in the fair excuse, right? And at the same time, it says to our vendors and our carnival operator, we care about bringing as many people in here as possible to to shop at your and buy from you. And so that's really the goal. Again, all tides rise, or all boats rise with a rising tide. And so let's bring as many people in the door as possible. One of the ways you do that, obviously, is through the daily promotions. And so we looked seriously at that to try and figure out how can we do one. Again, like I said, 9 out of 10 days we've got a promo.
Wow. And then, and then people in general, I'm wondering, what the economic status is of a lot of people right now. I've seen, uh, a lot of traction with some of these promotions that tells me people are, looking for a bargain, maybe don't have the
Absolutely.
money they had a couple years ago, or disposable anyway,
Right.
or they're a little nervous about certain things. So besides the grandstand, are there any other capital improvements you're putting together there?
We've got two other buildings that have traditionally been really nice banquet centers, and so we're looking to redo those and really enhance them, and again make them more operational year round. During the fair in the one, we're setting up a bar, and then we're doing a different kind of entertainment each night. And part of that is to help us do a little bit of market research to see what people respond to, right? So we're going to have a few nights we're going to have trivia, a few nights we're going to have live bands.
Oh, neat.
One night we're going to have painting, right? So you call ahead and reserve your spot and pick your canvas. And again, the idea is you come in, have a couple glasses of wine, paint a picture, and we'll see how that goes. We're having pro wrestling in there one night,
Wow.
which will be kind of interesting. And so again, it's testing it out as a venue, but then it's also testing what do people respond to, right? Because it's free to come in, with the exception of like the painting that's going through a separate vendor, so you have to pay her. But from an entertainment, what are people looking for? I think this gives us a little bit of a focus group on what people would be interested in attending and looking at.
Yeah, have you had anything like even in the grandstand, like comedy, or done some Christian? You have some Christian rock or things like that.
We have
You've
Christian
tested
rock
there.
this year. We're considering comedy for next year. Comedy has traditionally been. It really depends on the name.
Yeah, it
It's
does.
been a little more risky. Um, they've done well in the past with a couple of the bigger names, which now are unaffordable. But as we look at it, it's definitely something I want to do. And then we're also looking at how do we do those events not during the fair, right? Do we have an opportunity to partner with some of our local partners to bring something into our arena or one of our other facilities and kind of do something like on a Wednesday night kind of thing.
You want to get in a really risky business.
I think we'll make sure it's a sure thing before we pull the trigger on that. But it's really positioning ourselves, I think, as an entertainment venue for our community, right? What can we do to continue to enhance um, the the fact that people want to live here, right? And they can actually stay here. They don't have to travel to New York or Philadelphia or Baltimore. They
Hmm.
can get high quality entertainment here. And we've got a number of vendors or a number of venues in town that attract. So we would just be one more option, which again we definitely want to be a part of.
So the fairgrounds would be like a focal point for entertainment and things going on in the community, at least bigger type acts and things like that.
And it has been that for years. And again, I think we can continue to grow that. I mean, we hosted Rock the Country this year for the first time. It was our first time ever doing a 2-day music festival, and we had between the 2 days close to 40,000 attendees.
Wow.
We opened up our infield. They brought the stage in. They did a fantastic job. They were great to work with. And so we'll continue to look at how do we continue to push that model forward as well, right? Because it all comes back to the economic benefit for our community. And again, using the Placer AI, 70% of the people traveled more than 20 miles to get here. And when you look at the numbers and sort of the tourism numbers as far as what people spend, they're estimating that investment, that economic impact for those 2 days was right around $13 million.
That's incredible.
And so we had hotel rooms going for $400 a night, and in York, Pennsylvania, right?
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's those kind of things that I think we'll continue to look for. Those kind of partnerships we'll continue to look for, and really start to capitalize on what does the economic impact that we do mean for our community.
That's great. Well, I appreciate you taking your time to be on the podcast. I learned a lot about the York. What is York Interstate Fair? Is your official title?
State Fair.
York State Fair. That's right. Yep. Okay. Because Pennsylvania doesn't really have a state fair, but and hopefully your record as an interim person will change, and you'll spend some time there.
Yeah, I think I'll be here for a while. This is
great.
Like I said, it's a great team, it's a great organization. I obviously love the community, love the fair, so
and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun. But I appreciate you, appreciate the invitation, and would extend the invitation if you ever want to come down during the fair. Let me know, and we'll
definitely. Unfortunately, the fair I run is like right around the same dates. We're July 17th to the 27th, so we're going right. Maybe I'll catch it on the way back. I live in Virginia, so
okay.
Drive up to New York, drive back. Maybe I'll swing by.
Yeah, that last Sunday, we should be here ready to go for you. So.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, and good luck with the fair.
All right, thanks so much. Great to meet
you.
Take care now.
Nice meeting you.
This podcast is brought to you by Innovative Ticketing is the ticketing source made for the amusement industry. Our staff of professionals can guide you through your setup, assist with customer service, even on the weekends when you most need it, and help increase your sales through promotions that work. Innovative Ticketing is the ticketing source made for the amusement industry. Sign up today at innovativeticketing.com.